Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And problems that you have with the live feed. I was totally unable to use my usual settings, so I ended up with a different browser, a different computer, and finally made it work. So uh, here we are, and wow, what a difference a week doth make. We started in Aleppo 1 week ago, and it's ending in Damascus today. Bashar al-Assad, the Nazi son of a Nazi, is no more, or will soon be. I mean, rumors that he has already fled to Tehran, or maybe not, or maybe he's just, panhandling in the streets of Damascus, and that his minions have already arranged for an entry of Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham in the ancient capital of Damascus, exposing Assad's sham. Trump is eating popcorn watching this shit show unfold and probably thinking it's a good thing it's not happening a month from now. Israel keeps tabs on Hezbollah asshats that had just arrived as refugees from Lebanon as they make their trip back home. Russia is running as fast as their feet allowed and have already departed Tartus and definitely Terezad, and will soon abandon Latakia. Turkey is trying to consolidate a buffer zone in the north. The Iranians are crying and moping and wondering what's taken the Mahdi so long. Some are celebrating, others are cursing. We are enjoying the show. When the dust clears, we'll see who has the upper hand, if anyone. In the meantime, Iran and Russia are the big losers in this situation, and that is not bad at all. But we'll see where the conversation leads us. This is Beer Blather 249. They're screwed. And this is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from my golden cage in Florida. And with me tonight is none other than, yes, there we go, Thomas Victor. That guy, that guy. What? California again?
Yeah.
Are they chasing you with a jab?
No. Right before we went on air, I made a huge mistake. I accidentally shaved off half my beard. So I had to shave off the other half. And I'm not letting anybody on the face of the earth see me without a beard. So I'm going to be wearing this stupid thing. I might even buy a ski mask until my goddamn beard grows in, because
God,
it is very.
Can I ask you, my friend, how can you shave a half a beard by mistake?
Okay, I have a trimmer.
Yes,
and the trimmer has a piece that goes on top of the trimmer that has like spikes sticking out. So it's the to adjust the length of beard you want.
Yeah,
you have to put this. It looks like a cow catcher on the front of a train. You put that on there.
Yeah, it's a comb.
It's a comb, and the model I have, you adjust the length of the beard with a switch on the body. So
yes. I know it damn well. Imagine that.
Right. So I'm sure, as people notice, I haven't trimmed my beard in a long time. So I forgot how to use the trimmer, and I did not put the cow catcher, the comb on top. So I had just the naked blade, and I went like this, and half my beard fell off. So the only solution was to shave off the other half, and I'm going to wear this frigging thing until or you know what I'll do? I'll get a ski mask. That'll be even stupider than wearing this thing.
This thing, I'm having visions.
I've had a beard.
With the mask under your nose, I'm having visions of Biden right now.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is ridiculous, but I've had a beard since I was 18 years old. And without my beard, I'm one of the ugliest bastards who ever walked the face of the earth. And I do not feel like going on the air and showing off my horrendous ugliness to the rest of the world.
Your nakedness.
My nakedness, yeah.
I know. Remember, I told you I've had a beard ever since they let me out of the brig in Argentina.
So,
and I was maybe 19, so I know the feeling.
Yeah, I looked in the mirror.
Who the fuck is that guy?
We had a minute to go, so I just said to hell with it, and I went and I did the whole face. Then I looked around for a ski mask, and I couldn't find one, so I found this. I'll figure out something. I think I'll probably use a bandana if I can find one in this frigging house. But yeah,
see, whatever you do, Thomas, don't wrap a kafir around your neck.
I'm not going to do that. You were talking about Syria. I was watching the news right until we went up on the air. Damascus has officially fallen.
Yeah.
Bashar al-Assad's private jet was shot down as it was trying to fly out of Syria.
Yeah, I haven't been able to confirm it. Have you?
Yes, they've shown a 3D map of the spiral. The Syrians are saying,
but do we know the son of a bitch was there?
We don't know. All we know is it's confirmed that his private jet was shot down. Okay. Nobody can think of. I mean, it could be that this is some kind of super secret mission to pretend that he's dead and everything. But if you apply Occam's razor, he was on the plane trying to get the hell out of the country. Right before we went on the air, the Syrian general staff said Assad's rule is officially over.
Yep.
And we are going to cooperate with the new government, whatever that is. And
and they actually sat down to coordinate the entrance of the rebels in Damascus and make it easy.
There's a lot of misinformation out there. It isn't the jihadis who are entering Damascus. It's the Druze. No. It's the Druze Muslims who are allied with our people, the Syrian Democratic Forces. So the Druze are entering Damascus, not the jihadis, not the Muslim jihadis. So I saw a Syrian political scientist create a map of what he thinks Syria is going to look like in the not too distant future. It's going to be Kurdistan. It's going to be Sunni Syria in the center. It's going to be Druze Syria in the south. And it's going to be, what the hell was Assad's sect?
The Alawites in
Alawite. It'll be the Alawites on the coast
in Latakia.
But what's going on now is clearly coordinated with the Syrian government. This didn't just happen and start to gain momentum. This was clearly coordinated with the Syrian government, which tells me that countries in the region played a part in it, such as the Gulf Arabs and basically everybody just turned against Assad. And
yes, and Iran,
and
by the way, I've been watching this as you have, and I must confess, while I have more questions than answers,
of course,
it does look like it's going to be quite a mosaic after this is done, because everybody against Assad, but then it's going to be everybody for themselves, and they're going to carve their own little niches there.
They are, but this appears to be part of the plan, because Okay, the jihadis made a peace treaty with the SDF, who are backed
Yes.
by the US. So both of them promised to not fight the other and to not squabble over
Yep.
ground. So my guess is that before this happened, Syrian insiders plus representatives of all the jihadis, all the rebels, basically made it a decision of how Syria is going to look after the fall of Assad. Then they threw out Assad, and I don't think, since the Syrian government still exists, Assad is gone. The
Yep.
Syrian the infrastructure
The
it's not.
infrastructure is there, and Al-Julani was making a call to his followers: number one, to be gentle and sweet to civilians; number two, to preserve the structures of government; number three, that people working in government will continue to do so; number four, that he does not want, if even the supporters of the regime, he said something like, if you go into your house and lock the door, you're safe.
Yeah.
If you don't come against us, you're safe. If you lay down your weapons and surrender, you are safe. And there seems to be an almost conciliatory tone coming from even Al-Julani.
The Syrian Arab Army basically laid down its arms, threw away its uniform, and walked away. There was some fighting, but it's been entirely nominal throughout this whole process.
Yes. Oh, come on. It took them a week to capture every major city in Syria from one
And
end to the other.
that tells you that this was pre-planned by all the parties involved.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure the Syrians said, we don't want jihadis to come in and take over Damascus, and they said, okay, how about the Druze? Because I had you heard of Druze rebels before this at playing a major part?
I had, but they weren't playing any major parts.
Exactly. And now they're in control of Damascus.
Yeah, and now the Druze rebels are calling on international organizations like the IAEA and to come in and help them dispose of chemical weapons.
And that tells me that this was planned behind Assad's back by people in his government.
Oh yeah, no question.
By the whole region, because it started with the Israelis, wiping out Hamas and most of Hezbollah. And now that the Israelis have proved themselves, the rest of as you know, the problem with getting countries in that region to take a giant step into the unknown is because they keep getting it in the neck when they do. They get abandoned. They get promises made that aren't kept. And so they're not willing to stick their neck out unless there's something absolutely proven. The Israelis basically stepped in and played the role that we traditionally played in that region. The Israelis, wiped out everybody who was threatening everyone in the region. And as you and I were talking about last night, Iran has nobody left. Now that Syria has fallen, they can't even smuggle weapons into Hezbollah.
Everything. I mean, it would take me half an hour, but the short version: the entire weapons and drug traffic with which Iran/Hezbollah have been financing themselves, transporting weapons to America, drugs to Europe, with Lebanese flag carriers, through operations in Beirut, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like the largest source of income for Iran, other than the Biden administration. It's gone. They're screwed. They're isolated. They're completely surrounded.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in bad shape before. Today, they are by far the biggest losers.
As
The
are the
second, hmm?
as are the Russians, the Iranians.
I was going to say the second biggest loser is the Russians. We just lost Tartus and Latakia.
Mhm.
Tartus was, for you, you do remember, but some people out there may not. It was one of two, count them, two naval bases, Russian naval bases outside of Russia.
Mhm.
There was one in Vietnam, and this one in Tartus, which gave them access to the Mediterranean. Uh, Something that has been underscored how important it is when Turkey blocked the reinforcements of the Black Sea Fleet and essentially condemned them to go to Bikini Bottom in the
Mhm.
past year. Another one, there are so many people talking about Turkey. The reason that Russia has been unable to do a naval blockade of Odessa, you schmucks, is because Turkey cut off access to the Black Sea to naval reinforcements. Duh.
Mhm.
And if they wanted to have any kind of presence in the Mediterranean, Tartus was the only place where their fleet could reprovision, fuel, replace munitions, and it's gone. And now they're bolted up on the other side of the freaking Bosphorus, and they're as useful as a bent nail.
Mhm.
So the other thing they had was the air base in Latakia and the base at Deir ez-Zor. Now the rebels just took the base in Deir ez-Zor, and do you know what they found?
What?
ISIS uniforms.
Yep.
Apparently, the Russians used to get their kicks by dressing up like jihadis and committing all sorts of atrocities, thereby justifying their own existence.
Mhm.
Now, if I didn't know the Russians, I wouldn't believe this, but I know the Russians, so I do believe this. And now, the entire contents of the base are being filmed, and you're going to see a flood of information on social media in the next week of all the shit the Russians were up to in Deir ez-Zor. But they lost their bases. Remember when a year and a half ago they were talking about bringing Syrian fighters to Ukraine?
Mhm.
Bring
Yeah.
him on, asshole.
Now that Assad is gone, um, people are posting video and photographic evidence of all the atrocities he committed during his regime, and
Oh, God.
you know, there's going to be very few defenders left when all of this comes out. I mean, there'll be a handful that are going to say. I mean, if you look at social media now, they're claiming, "Oh, the CIA was behind this." The one organization we know that was not behind this is the CIA.
You know why?
Because we
Because
were,
they succeeded.
well, there's that.
The
And
best proof that the CIA had nothing to do with this is that the sons of bitches in 1 week took over a country. If the CIA had been meddling with this thing, they would have failed.
they would have failed. And also, Biden's connections to Iran, we wouldn't dare. Uh, uh, okay, the U.S. has claimed credit for airstrikes using A-10 Thunderbolt 2 Warthog aircraft, but the videos that show the A-10, the planes are flying at about 100 feet off the ground. That's not American policy with the A-10. The reason
Right.
that the A-10 was not used in previous iterations of the Syrian civil war is because it's considered incredibly vulnerable to ground fire, to shoulder fired missiles and everything.
Yeah.
So I isolated a couple of frames. I can't tell what color this it's a video of, or two videos known, I think. The one that I was able to isolate, this thing looks camouflaged. And we used to have a fleet of something like 300 odd, 375, and we cut it down to a little more than a third. And all the they went to the junkyard in Arizona, the boneyard, to be used for spare parts. You know that they pickle the aircraft out there, and they
Yep.
can last for decades. But okay, the A-10 was the U.S. denied strenuously that they were going to sell any of them to anybody. Um, the plans for the A-10, the A-10 was built by a company called Fairchild, which ceased to exist ages ago. You can get the plans to an A-10, and if you have the ability, you can build your own. I've been seeing incredibly low flying A-10s in the Middle East in the Syrian civil war since around 2018, 2017, 2018, maybe even earlier. And they all appear to be camouflaged in green and tan. I can't say for 100% sure that these are not American A-10s, but all I know is that American A-10 pilots don't fly that low. The videos showing the A-10, and it's obviously in a combat mission because it's firing off flares, but the only time an A-10 ever flown by Americans ever flies that low is in demonstrations, and even in demonstrations, it doesn't fly as low as they're flying over Syria. So it's just something to think about. I don't see Biden allowing the U.S. to engage the Syrian Arab army in defense of the
I
Syrian.
don't see any of them. I don't see Biden. I don't see Jake Sullivan. I don't see Lloyd Austin. I don't see any of those assholes with the gonads to do something like this. The only thing they know how to do is get the hell out.
Exactly. And it would be illegal for somebody to say ship a completed A-10 to the Emiratis. You know, the Emiratis have this facility called AMROC, uh, 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 the advanced military maintenance aircraft overhaul, and basically they can build anything there and they can convert anything there. That's where they convert like private jets into electronic warfare jets, for example. You know, the Saudis have their own indigenous jet that's based on an Antonov. What's it called? The Latakia, I think that's what it's called. But there's an electronic warfare version of this jet, and
Mm.
it was converted at AMROC in the UAE. So if the Emiratis got their hands on plans for an A-10, they could build their own. Absolutely. We can't build any more new A-10s because Fairchild went out of business, and the what would you call them? The machinery for building A-10s was long since been destroyed.
Yeah.
But if money isn't an object,
You can make them again.
you can make them again. And I'm just very, very struck by how low these pilots are flying on combat missions, which is absolutely against American Air Force doctrine. But
I've seen
I
it
could
in other
be
parts.
wrong.
I've seen it in other parts in the 80s, 90s. The Argentine Air Force developed what they call the Pucará, and it was essentially a plane designed to shoot at people.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, the entire purpose of the little aircraft was to shoot at protesters,
Mhm.
and many governments around the world found it a useful tool to go against their people. And
Mhm.
that one does fly very low, But of course, they're not worried about a Stinger because, the students don't usually come armed with shoulder fire missiles.
No.
Eh, But other than that, I haven't seen it going that low. I've seen in some instances in Afghanistan and in Iraq, A-10s flying relatively low, uh, but at least 500 to 1,000 feet.
Well, that's the thing that in Syria, the A-10s fly low enough that you can hear the machinery of the Gatling cannon going.
Yeah.
And in Afghanistan, you would hear the rounds striking the ground. It sounds like really violent rain and explosions, and then you would hear the classic brrr sound.
Yeah.
In Syria, you hear the brrr sound first, and then you hear at a microsecond later the round striking the target. And I've just been, it's just been in my head for years now. I wonder if somebody just got the plans for the A-10, because if an A-10 pilot were to be shot down and killed over Syria. Pardon me?
Who's making the engines? That's the one Achilles heel of anybody who wants to build a jet today. There are relatively few countries that have the technology that allows them to build a jet engine that will actually work. China, of course, is not among them.
Well,
which brings me to a second point. Did you see what's happening
with A-10?
Did you see what's happening to the Shahid drones lately?
Yeah, they're being shot down by hell.
They crash on their own.
Okay.
When they input, for a sharp turn to the right, for instance, it never recovers and it crashes. And apparently, the reason is they were using servo motors from South Korea, but because of sanctions, they don't have them anymore, and now they're using servo motors from China. They're buying them on Temu or something, and the little servos fail routinely. If they cannot build a fucking tiny servo motor to move the ailerons on a drone, how are they going to build a jet engine? Hello? Did I lose you there?
Well, if they're getting parts from China, then we know they're screwed.
Oh, God. They're getting soldiers from North Korea and parts from China. Oop-de-doop-de-doo.
No, I just... No, everybody who needs to be losing power is losing power right now. And it's really fascinating because, Trump sent out a tweet and whatever he calls it on his social network, saying that we shouldn't get involved in what's happening in Syria. And people didn't know how to take it. The way I'm taking it is he's been informed what's happening in Syria, and he knows there's no need for the United States to get involved.
President Trump just came out with something that is more or less along the lines of what we have been saying for a while, which is, do we care if Assad is toast? No, he's an enemy. We don't give a shit about that asshole. Do we care if the Syrian government falls? No, they're an enemy. We don't give a shit about it. Do we support any particular faction? Well, no. Let them fight it out. And
exactly,
that's something else. When your enemies, assuming they're enemies, and I'm assuming they are, fight each other to the death, let them.
Well, also, I mean, there are people. Okay, the Free Syrian Army has said that they bear no animosity toward anyone except Assad.
Yeah.
The Syrian Democratic Forces, we're supporting them. But okay, here's something really interesting. There was a video published of the Syrian Democratic Forces, a convoy, a massively long convoy, and it was almost all of it was Humvees and Oshkosh MRAPs, the mine resistant anti whatever the MRAP stands for. These were all former Gulf Arab vehicles. These are not American. These are Gulf Arab vehicles. And so my guess is that Trump, now that he's president-elect, he's had people from everywhere calling him, telling him what's up. And I think the Gulf Arabs, I think they've been planning this. I mean, okay, Turkey supports another conglomerate of jihadists, of Islamist jihadists, and they're trying to take land in from the Kurdish areas. But Turkey keeps having its butt handed to it by the Kurds, and I think this is going to be a pretty orderly, from what I can tell. I think this is going to be a pretty orderly transition because the government infrastructure is still there, and the government is willing to cooperate with whatever new government is produced, and there's people claiming that this is the same as what happened in Iraq. This has nothing to do with what happened in Iraq. In Iraq, the entire government infrastructure fell apart. In this case, Assad's own general staff, all the people who gave the orders to commit the atrocities and war crimes, they've all fled the country.
Yeah.
They've all fled to whoever will allow them in. But
Iran.
Exactly. Iran, some went to Egypt. The claim is some went to the UAE. If they went to the UAE, then, and if they've got blood on their hands, they're not long for this world, especially if they've got Israeli blood on their hands.
Oh yeah.
But there is an entire working infrastructure left in Syria. As of yet, there are no credible reports of war crimes being committed by the rebels in this particular operation.
Yeah, so far nothing, and more. When the Assad regime's forces left Homs, they left the police behind. When the rebels arrived, the only forces in the city were the police forces that were very much intact, and they left them very much alone. They did free the prisoners. I'm presuming the vast majority political prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that, as it always happens when in the confusion of freeing political prisoners, I'm sure that a few rapists, murderers have been released as well. But don't worry, they can be caught again. But the point is that the police departments remain on duty and very much unscathed.
But see, that had to be arranged beforehand, because
Yes.
otherwise those guys would have taken to the hills themselves. If you have rebels coming and you're a member of the police force,
You get the hell out of Dodge.
especially the police. Exactly. So looking through Twitter, it appears that people are taking at face value that this was just an uprising that just happened to work this time. But
yeah, if anybody thinks
the Syrian civil,
if anybody thinks that the logistics involved in coming out of Idlib capturing every major city in the country and toppling the government in a week is the result of some impromptu, spontaneous demonstration, paraphrasing Susan Rice, they're out of their fucking mind. This is a very well planned and very well coordinated operation among five groups that until recently were killing each other, and probably very high up members of the Assad government that just did an about face and, okay, buddy, you're on your fucking own. It's every ass for himself now.
See, this is obviously true because the rebels are basically guys in pickup trucks, and the pickup trucks often have heavy machine guns mounted on them, but there aren't enough of them to take entire cities unless the defenders are in on it.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, okay, the group that has the worst reputation is the one run by al-Jilani, HTS, which is also calling itself the Syrian Salvation Government. And
yeah.
For him to basically put out orders to his troops to not behave like conquering jihadists, that tells you that they're not conquering jihadists. I mean, in the videos you're hearing,
and that tells you that he's in no position to take on the rest of them.
Well, that's another aspect of it. I've seen interviews with the guy since he started taking off his traditional clothes and wearing suits, and he's not said that he's interested in actually, running an emirate single-handedly in Syria. He's spoken a lot about cooperation and so my theory about that guy is that I believe he's a Saudi agent, just because every single jihadist group that he's run has ended up getting destroyed. And this is former Al-Qaeda. So former Al-Qaeda has transformed itself into, at least so far, an organization that doesn't commit the same sort of atrocities that Al-Qaeda is famous for committing. For former Al-Qaeda, for the leader of former Al-Qaeda, say, leave the civilians alone. Al-Qaeda used to say civilians are legitimate military targets.
Yes. So, no, they not only the civilians, leave the Syrian army soldiers alone if they don't fight you. Yep. And the emphasis that he's putting on, openness and tolerance, and let's sit down and sing Kumbaya. Personally, I don't quite believe it, but it doesn't matter. What it means to me is that at the very least, he's not in a position to pick a fight with anybody.
No, he doesn't have enough people, and okay, the Druze, as we just talked about, the Druze, they've been around, but they haven't played a significant part in this war. They just took Damascus. They just took the capital city of Syria, basically without firing a shot.
I mean, like the rest of them. I mean, how did they take Homs or I'm having a brain fart again. Homs. Mm-hmm. How did they take that? They walked in.
Mm-hmm.
They walked in. They went to the police stations. Hey, hello. Now we're the new boss in town. Sure, boss. And that was it.
And
where are the battles?
They didn't leave half of their people behind to make sure the cops did what they want. They basically said, we're the new boss, and then they left.
And where are the battles? Where is Assad's army last stand?
It hasn't had one because it hasn't needed to have one.
No, they just left. and turn over the keys. And I presume the same thing is going to happen in Latakia very soon.
Do you know who's like really, if he's getting, well, one individual and a group, if they're paying close attention to this, they're scared out of their gourd. Putin and the Iranian mullahs, because Syria was easily one of the most locked down countries on the face of the planet in terms of order kept through terror, through murder, mass murder. Do you remember there was a series of photos and records smuggled out from an extermination camp, and they documented over 18,000 who'd been tortured to death, and it was a typical fascist, recording what sort of torture implement was used, how many times it was applied, what time of day. So the fact that a country that locked down with secret police, with death squads, with all of that, this could happen in a week or 2 weeks. That means the mullah.
It's because it's been faltering for a while, for a year.
True. The same thing could happen given the right circumstances in Russia and in Iran.
Oh, yeah. In Russia, it's going to be worse. In Iran, it could happen very much this way. We have seen before, and remember when I said if we do anything in Iran, we should bomb every facility of the Revolutionary Guards, because the regime deprived of the Revolutionary Guards cannot stop the people of Iran from toppling them and replacing them with something that will, of necessity, be better, because it can't be fucking worse. But this is the same thing. The collapse, these regimes fall when their own forces collapse. In Iran, they're very close to it. Faisal is asking if, by the way, salam alaikum, Faisal. He's asking if we've seen the chaos at the airport in Damascus. Yes, I have. And what would you expect? Everybody who's been sucking the teeth of the Assad regime for the past 52 years is looking for a way out. And anybody who didn't leave already, and they're at the airport trying to catch a flight, paying, I presume, any amount to get on a plane, and that leads to chaos. But that's not a military battle. That is civilians trying to leave and nobody stopping them. It's not the same as the chaos in Kabul airport in 21. So it is interesting. Oh, Faisal says 54 years. Well, you say 54, I say 52. They're royally fucked for over a half a century. But it's almost normal for something like that to happen. I presume there's going to be log jams in roads leading out of Damascus as well.
Well, Bashar al-Assad's brother was groomed by their father to be Hafez al-Assad's successor, and Bashar al-Assad was training to be an ophthalmologist. He was in the UK. He was in London.
Yep.
And his brother was killed in a car accident, and Bashar came back and took over. Or Bashar came back and became the heir.
Oh, and I remember to this day the glowing articles in Time and U.S. News and World Report and Newsweek. The ophthalmologist in London, the Western-educated fellow who was going to bring democracy to Syria. Ha! They always do the same shit, don't they?
If you were chosen by your father to be his hand, Okay, if you were chosen by your father to be his handpicked successor, and you were, it would be a process akin to sexual grooming, the way people
Yeah,
groom somebody. Bashar al-Assad has no excuses. He was overseas. He was in London. He was living the life, and he came back and he slipped right into the savagery of his father. And you know, one could argue that he was actually worse than his father. So
yeah, more, better weapons, more efficient.
yep.
Both of them committed atrocities and killed entire populations and leveled cities every time there was an uprising.
Mhm.
Uh, People don't realize this. I purposely chose this picture of Bashar for our meme tonight. There you go. You can see him right behind me.
Mhm.
You see the son of a gun?
Yeah.
Okay. The creep. It looks like he's saying hello to somebody. He also looks like he's lifting his arm in a fascist salute. Um, in Hafez al-Assad's army, 50% of the officers were former SS officers that had taken refuge in Syria.
Mhm.
50% of the officer corps of the Syrian army were Nazi SS officers. The Ba'ath Party that he founded, oh, no, he didn't found it, he took over it, uh, was modeled after the Nazi Party.
Mhm.
People today seem to have forgotten how much of real Nazis these people are.
Well, a Syrian political scientist said that this should rightfully be called the last battle of World War II because the
Oh,
Ba'athists Nazis.
yeah. I think there are a few battles of World War II left to fight yet, but it is definitely one of the last battles of World War II, like the toppling of Saddam Hussein was.
Mhm. No, and
Like the destruction of Hamas is.
we'll see. Okay, think of what's going on. The Syrian, I just looked it up. The Syrian civil war started around March 2011. So
Yeah.
we're looking at 14 years of this. And when we went into Iraq to overthrow Saddam in 2003, we we had multiple first world armies helping us. We went in, we overthrew him, we tried endlessly to set up a democratic, government that would actually, um, you know, reflect the will of the people. All of that, and it can be argued that the whole adventure was a failure. It was a failure in no large part because George Bush refused to defend himself, and as a result, he always said, "We'll let history be a judge," and unfortunately for him, history has judged him wanting. This thing, I have no doubt that there were first world countries behind what just happened in Syria, but it was all done under the radar.
Yeah.
So there was no public having to take sides over which formal colonial power or perceived imperial power you were going to be on, and that's a terrible position for Middle Eastern people to be
Yeah.
in. So this was a much smarter way to do it, but we defeated the Iraqis in 3 weeks of major combat. This thing in Syria took 14 years to accomplish.
Yeah.
So
Well,
the, the local,
for 10 of those years, you had the Obama administration propping up Assad,
Mhm.
financing different groups, prolonging the war unnecessarily, inviting the Russians in,
Mhm.
inviting the Iranians in. I mean, come on. If instead of Obama we had an American president in 2012, this thing wouldn't have lasted a year. I remember comparing it to the Spanish Civil War and how the uh, non intervention club actually caused the Communist Party to rise and essentially deliver the Republican forces to the communists. Uh, when you're at war, whoever puts up money and weapons has an edge. And communists who had gotten 2% of the vote in the latest election, all of a sudden were the ones bringing up the money and the weapons from Stalin. And they acquired immense power within the Republican side. And that, how shall I say, polarization eventually favored the fascists.
Mhm.
And the point, too, is by refusing to help the Republican side, they allowed only the communists and the fascists to prosper with weapons and money from Hitler and Stalin. Had European democracies supported the real Republicans at the beginning, maybe we wouldn't have gotten there. In Syria is the same thing.
Mhm.
Had we supported the Free Syrian Army and the multi facetic opposition to Assad, which was a rather interesting coalition of everybody that wanted a better Syria, it maybe, just maybe, within a year, it could have been a different story. But what we did is starve that center, allow ISIS, Iran, and Russia and Turkey to get their piece of the pie and polarize the Syrian countryside to a degree that they'll be lucky if they have five countries now.
Mhm.
That non interventionist policy was, in fact, a policy of support for Assad and jihadists. And it should have been over, but it wasn't. And to this day, it's the same thing that happened in Ukraine.
Mhm.
By the way, have you noticed that Iran is threatening Ukraine to stop aiding the rebels in Syria? It couldn't get funnier. But the same thing happened in Ukraine. Had there been
Well,
somebody with balls in the US in 2014, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine, and we
okay.
wouldn't be where we are today.
Don't forget also Biden invited the Russians into Ukraine. He said if
Yes,
it's just a little incursion, then no, we won't do anything.
yeah, and Obama was a little bit more accommodating after the re-election, and essentially allowed Putin to snatch Crimea and occupy the Donbass. So it's Russia didn't invade Ukraine in 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. They just had reinforcements in 2022.
Did the Iranians explain how the Ukrainians are helping the Syrian rebels?
No, but I would love to hear that one.
Yeah.
They're giving them a bad example.
Well, I mean, Iran can make whatever demands it wants now, and the whole world can just laugh and say,
Who
"Whatever."
gives a crap?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
gives a crap? And
No.
and now in Argentina they're publishing the secret accords between the Peronists and the Iranians
Mhm.
for collaboration and the exchange of moolah in exchange for allowing the Iranian operatives who participated in the bombing of the AMIA and the Israeli embassy to walk free. Isn't that lovely, by the way?
Well, John Bolton said on some, I think CNN, I don't know, he said that now that the Assad regime has fallen, when we get our hands on their records, it'll prove that Tulsi Gabbard is a paid Iranian.
Oh, well, let me say something for clarity. I don't like Tulsi Gabbard. I don't like her at all. A paid Russian agent? Are these people out of their fucking minds? Yes, she did go to Syria and met with Assad. And then came back, and in Congress she said that Assad was a brutal dictator that had to be removed. Would the real Tulsi step forward? I have no problem with presidents or congressmen or senators visiting whoever the fuck they want to visit for fact-finding and learning.
Trump stepped into North Korea.
Yeah. Does that make him a paid North Korean agent? Of course not. It's their freaking job. It's like General Flynn talking to Kislyak. He was doing his job.
Yeah, and see, I'm not a big Tulsi fan, but I do want her to be head of I want her to be director of national intelligence because she's a disruptor. And I want everybody that Trump appoints initially to be massive disruptors. I want him to shake the tree of federal government until it almost comes up by its roots.
Well, now that we have 100 swamp dwellers of the intelligence community issuing letters in opposition to Tulsi, most of them signatories of that infamous letter denouncing the Hunter Biden computer as a Russian psyop, all of a sudden I'm on her side. It's like if I have to choose between her and these assholes, I'll choose her and fuck these assholes. And please, the first thing you have to do is cancel their security clearance, please.
Well, also, why do they think this is going to have an impact? I mean, all of that stuff died with Kamala Harris's campaign. It's over. I mean, we've seen a massive cultural shift in this country. You and I were talking about Joni Ernest the other day. I mean, Joni Ernest is almost certainly going to end up voting for Pete Hegseth because, she's getting blasted. And these people are being told basically by the voters, look, you do what Trump wants or you're out of office. And we mean it. And it's been proven that these threats are real threats. They're not, ask Budweiser Light,
Any asshole who voted to confirm a cross-dressing, baggage-stealing shithead or Merrick Garland or the pothole-filling mayor of South Bend has no argument to object to any nomination today. They can go fuck themselves. And I'll be very happy if they're primary. Joni Ernest, who we know from her divorce papers that he was fucking underlings in Iraq. It's like, give me a fucking break. What the crap? What moral authority do you have to talk about anybody? And she voted for the cross-dressing creep.
Yep.
So that's enough. That is enough. I've had enough with the posturing of these pseudo-moralists who in fact are nothing but, grifters in for whatever they can get for themselves. Michael says Nancy Pelosi visited Assad. A lot of people visited Assad. I don't mind it. When people have to legislate in the U.S. and what they do affects Syria and what we do with Syria. Do we spend money there? Do we send troops there? Going over there to find out, to learn, that is what they should do. I'm sick and fucking tired that every time there is a question of substance, some imbecile gets a picture from 20 years ago that somebody took a picture with so and so. You know, they didn't bring up the pictures of Obama with Raul Castro fuckers. Eh, but I don't care. If you're doing your job and you're in that position, you have pictures with half the fucking planet, good, bad, and ugly. Now, can anybody tell me what specific action Tulsi Gabbard took in Congress in support of Assad? Do you remember any?
No.
What I do remember is her lambasting Assad for a cruel and murderous dictator that he was. As opposed to say, Sucker Towson, my favorite little shit lately, who goes back to Moscow to suck Lavrov dry. That asshole is a different thing. He's effectively propagandizing for the Russian Federation. But Tulsi, no. And Tulsi's spiel that I disagree with, that I find obscenely stupid, of essentially peace at any cost, is consistent with what she did. I disagree, but that doesn't make her a foreign agent, does it?
This is interesting. I'm looking at Twitter right now. Um,
You're a courageous man.
well, it's I can't figure out like why people are saying what they're doing, or why people are saying what they're saying. It's like um, it's really fascinating to me that okay, the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria is amazing on its own. The fact that the rebels are working out deals with the Syrian government sections that are willing to work with them, that's pretty amazing. The reality of what's happening is quite spectacular, and yet people are wasting their time on false nonsense, on accusations against Israel and accusations against the CIA and all this weird, like, lowbrow, I don't know, just proof that people don't understand a bloody thing about what's going on. And that aspect of it all is sort of swamping Twitter. Like an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, you were getting really good information, and now, at least on my timeline, it's just garbage. It's people posting pictures of Gaza and saying, "Look what the rebels did to Damascus," that sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and I can understand that some asshole wants to do that to confuse people. I cannot understand that thousands of assholes jump on it and make it their own.
Mhm.
It's like, really, folks? I mean, are you that stupid? Yes, they are.
They
It's
are.
the largest collection of delusional, paranoid cretins ever assembled in a single medium. And I find it oddly dissatisfying. Uh, I used to laugh at them. Now they just piss me off.
Well, that's the thing. It's like this is major history in the making as we're watching, and it doesn't, at least on social media. Okay, there's plenty of people pointing out, this is outrageously important history being made as we're watching, but there's an equal number of people who are just like I don't know. It's like they're trolling, but they're not trolling. They're this is how they really
Oh, they're
think.
just stupid. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Elon Musk trolls,
he trolls. Yeah,
eh, but he's not stupid.
no.
And often you can see when he's trolling. It's to me at least it's fairly obvious. Though apparently it flies over the head of most people in Twitter like a band of migrating Canadian geese. Um, he just he just made a tweet earlier today about Ron Paul, and I was cracking up because I know that I know what he's doing, and it's marvelous. He's just pushing people's buttons and see the reaction. Um, Obviously, he's liking his toy.
Mhm.
But the problem is, y- I put a tweet and people start jumping. Yes, because that's the problem we have. They want to eliminate the white man. And I said, what the fuck? Why are you, why are you answering me? Why are you following me? I block them all, of course. But the idea that these fuckers would think that I want to talk to them or listen to their inanities is way too much. It's getting to be too much for me.
Well, we've been talking about how, of course, Assad and the Russians and the Iranian mullahs are screwed, but also the Democrats are screwed because I'm starting to see more and more of them saying that they lost because they didn't lean into identity politics enough. And so they're going to go for it even harder in 26 and 28.
Please do.
And that's my response. Please do. I want you to.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be wonderful. You know, what would scare me is if more Democrats were like Fetterman.
Mm-hmm.
Because Fetterman lately has been on point
Mm-hmm.
and very accurate on a number of issues, especially when it comes to foreign relations and geopolitics and what's going on around the world. He seems to have a very, very clear understanding and no fear.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that he's going to get backlash from his own party, and apparently he doesn't give a fuck. If more Democrats were like him, eh, I would find that a problem because, on the other hand, he's a consummate collectivist
Mm-hmm.
whose policies, whose domestic policies are anathema to liberty. So the more he looks like a reasonable man, the higher the risk that those collectivist policies might one day become reality.
Mm-hmm.
But these other idiots who want to push transgenderism up everybody's butt, yeah, please do it. Please do it. That's how you lose people, and you're going to lose even bigger next time.
Well, I don't know if you've been watching these Chicago town hall meetings. I mean, they're some guy was holding up like an orange prison jumpsuit for the mayor, and saying that basically all black Chicagoans were going to be helping the ICE round up all the illegals, and it's pretty amazing because the 2024 election is the beginning of something. It's going to, more people are going to vote for Trumpism the next time around, because this is sort of the ice breaking, and people seeing that it wasn't the end of the world. They didn't lose everything by voting for Trump. And on the other hand, when they're told that no, I saw something today about some, it used to be that the Oscars, that was like the only award show, and then now there's 24. But one of the major ones, they opened a gender neutral category, and essentially no women have been nominated. It's all men, and men pretending to be women. The gender neutral categories they're forcing out the women, because you have like these women calling themselves non-binary, and so they go into the general neutral. But straight women who were born with double X chromosomes aren't getting nominated for anything. It's all men claiming to be women, and women announcing that they no longer they're now gender fluid. So
what the fuck does that even mean? Gender fluid,
well, okay.
The fluidity of gender. I'm a man in the morning. I'm a man in the morning and a girl at night. What the fuck is that?
Well, see, you just did that as a joke, but that's exactly what they say.
I know, but to me the whole thing is a joke. How can anybody take this shit seriously?
It is a joke, because when you announce you're a man, you don't suddenly grow a penis. You still have a vagina, but you're just pretending to be a man. And it's the other way around. I had to go give blood, not give blood. I had to go get a blood test. And the woman asked me what kind of dog I had, because I had white hairs all over my sweater. And I said, "Oh, from my beard." And she goes, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." I said, "Well, you're lucky that you can't grow a beard." And she said, "Well, some women can." And I realized, oh, I'm in California.
Well,
I forgot.
By the way, of course some women can. We used to see them in the circuses.
We used to see them in the circuses.
Yeah, every menagerie had a bearded woman.
But I could tell from her reaction that she was talking about men who are pretending to be women, and are growing beards and saying, "See, look, women can grow beards." It's like that. When Trump was on Twitter before he got thrown off, he had this insane medical doctor. He was an Asian guy, and he would post like 50 tweet threads every time Trump quoted. And this guy eventually lost his job, and I hope he was institutionalized, because he was crazy. But he was a medical doctor saying that men can give birth.
Yeah. I remember that moron. Yes.
Yeah, it's a medical fact that men can give birth, but see, that goes against. There's a move now to call women birthing people. It's like, well, wait a minute, you just said that some men can give birth. So are you saying? What are you saying? You're not saying anything that makes any sense.
Yeah, the birth canal is the asshole.
I don't know. I just
it is like giving birth. They need an epidural to drop a block. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. Eugene Gu was crazy as crazy can freaking be. And if he wasn't institutionalized, he should be. Somebody is saying in the chat, so uh, those were actually real. I know that's why they were in menageries together with the other freaks.
Yeah.
You know, it's there are people born essentially Siamese twins. You have a person with two heads.
Well,
Poor things. My heart goes out to them. But that's not a special anything. That's a problem.
I dated a woman who had she had very fine but definite facial hair. She was, her facial features, everything about her she was beautiful, and she just happened to have facial hair and very long silky hair on her arms and all of that. And I didn't find it unattractive because this was obviously a woman, and it wasn't stubble. It wasn't, it wasn't like a like a male beard, like
maybe like a peach.
No. I mean, it was her hair was very soft and silky, and so she was like an Angora cat. And she was quite well known at the college because she was so hirsute, to use an old fashioned term, but it wasn't unattractive because she was a woman. She wasn't a man pretending to be a woman.
How many women?
Yeah, she was just like a big Angora.
Oh, your internet.
Well, I mean, well, I wish you could see what I'm seeing. You were frozen with your mouth wide open, and all I could hear was like this strange gobbling sound.
Well, if it
now you're frozen again.
If it serves as any consolation, you get frozen to me every now and then too.
Yeah. Isn't it great?
Yeah. By the way, a lot of women have to use bleach. They have a fuzz, or that's almost normal. That's not the point. The point is to suggest that a woman can impregnate another. Worse, that a woman can impregnate a man, and a man can therefore give birth. People who come out with that kind of shit are clinically insane. And we shouldn't be paying any attention to that.
Well, and God bless the Democrats if they take this ball and run even further with it, then they'll lose even more elections, which is what I want. I heard some Democrat complaining that the problem with today's Democrats is that they refuse to sit down and have a rational conversation with people who oppose their viewpoint. And so this is why they lost, is because they come across as maniacs. Did you hear about Obama's speech where he warned us against absolutely everything that he does himself?
Yes, because the Republicans steal elections and use the judiciary to go after their opponents.
Yeah.
He actually said it without cracking up. I mean, I have to give him cookie points for acting.
Well, either he was acting or he is off his rocker.
Well,
did you? I saw some Democrat insider giving a postmortem, and she said that Obama's plan was to get Joe to announce that he wasn't going to run, and then Obama's favorite was Gabby Gifford's husband.
Yes, what a moron. She wasn't much.
Well, he said that. I'm talking about her husband.
Yeah, she wasn't
He's
much
like
to
an
talk about.
ex-astronaut.
Her husband was beyond stupid.
Well, see, Obama was sure that this guy was going to win, and everybody was telling him he can't win because he's a white male, and we hate white males. So our people aren't going to come out and vote for him. And then Joe Biden, 30 minutes after he announced he wasn't going to run, he endorsed Kamala, and then that was it. And
Yeah.
as we talked about, Obama spent several days in a sulk, refusing to endorse her.
Desperately tried to find an alternative that wasn't there. By the way, Faisal is telling us on the chat, he's probably watching the news in Saudi right now. Rebels in Damascus are storming the Iranian embassy, tearing down Nasrallah, Soleimani, and Khamenei posters off the walls of the embassy.
Very nice.
How can you not like that?
Yeah.
If there's anything to worry about, I'll worry about when the time comes. Right now, I'm just enjoying the view. Rebels in Syria taking it on Iran. Ooh, that is beautiful.
Let me look up Damascus and see if there's a.
Santa, yes. Obama, no, says Deb. I love the chat today. These people are very overactive there. They're very overactive.
Okay, here's a giant brain. Christians in Damascus are praying. They're about to be killed, raped, and sold as sex slaves by scum.
How often that fucker speaks of the Christians being massacred in Nigeria on a daily basis?
Well, never.
Well, then he can take his complaints, shove them up his ass, and walk into the nearest sunset. I hate opportunistic little fucks trying to sell their snake oil. You're worried about Christians here. Where were you in the past 4 years? Where were you when
God,
the Christian populations in North Africa were being massacred?
what I'm amazed at is the number of posters of Bashar al-Assad that are all over Damascus.
Oh, they're posters, statues. I mean, the guy had a Stalin complex, and all of those are now fuel for fires.
Okay, here's a post that's 3 minutes old. Well, I guess there's some Syrians here. I hear fireworks going off. It says it shows the downtown Damascus with people celebrating, and you don't see an Islamic, you don't see a jihadist in sight.
No, it's the people of Damascus. The same thing happened in Homs. They took down a statue of Assad in Homs, in a center square, and it was the closest thing I've ever seen to the toppling of the statue of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad in 2000. What was it? 2003. And it was it wasn't even our people. It was the people in the city.
Yeah.
Chanting and celebrating and taking down the signs. It is as it usually happens. It's going to be a fun time for a while, and hopefully, they'll find a way forward. I do still think that the different factions will eventually kind of fight it off, but for the time being, yeah, good. Christians in Syria and Lebanon, says Faisal, are celebrating I
Yeah,
can present some of it if you like. I'm damn sure that they are.
of course they are.
And that's
The notion,
one of the
the
biggest canards is that the Shia Alawites were protectors of Christians in Syria. Nothing could be farther
they
from
were,
the truth.
well, they were murderers. They were mass murderers of Christians. This notion that Bashar al-Assad protected Christians against the jihadists, I mean, it's a lie. It's an absolute
He,
fabrication.
he fed Christians to the jihadis. My favorite was in Aleppo. People from there, instead of Assad's brother, off of a horse statue. Can you imagine? They even have statues to the drunken bastard who died in a car accident. Um, so
I saw
it's
a video. There was a video of a statue of Bashar being pulled down. It got pulled over backwards and it hit a wall, and it got totally cleanly decapitated. It was like really,
nice.
really exceptional. That
Maybe an omen. Maybe an omen. They took down. Oh,
is
Hafez
Assad's
Assad
wife.
statue. Oh, in Latakia they took down the Hafez Assad statue too.
Is
It's
Assad's wife?
Hmm? She's very Western looking.
Is Assad's wife American?
She's very
Is she
Western.
American?
I think she was. I think she was. I may be confused with others because there is a kind of a passion of these rulers for American wives from Morocco and Jordan to Syria. I think she was. And when I say was, is because she's British, says Faisal, not
British.
American.
There we go.
She's British. Actually, she was British because I'm sure that she took Syrian citizenship. Otherwise, things don't work. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of pressure release, and we'll see where the dust settles. I'm mid midterm. I'm skeptic. Long term, I'm very, very, very optimistic.
Well,
Very.
okay. The Israelis are currently bombing Quds Force generals. This all happening. So that tells me this isn't the fall of Bashar al-Assad wasn't just the Arabs all getting together and deciding. This tells me that the Israelis are also involved because they're taking out Quds Force generals. They've already killed 4 in the past 24 hours with airstrikes. So
yeah, the Israelis are definitely helping get rid of the Iranians in Syria. The Russians, nobody has to get rid of them. They're already running like rats out of a burning ship. But by the way, I have to go back to this, Thomas, because the idea of the debacle, the biggest idiot, the biggest asshole in all of this, and I tried to convey it in the meme today, is Putin the clown.
yep,
He's the court jester.
he is.
In this meme, you have Bashar saying waving goodbye, Khamenei crying, but Putin is a clown. The way this man, in 2 years flat, has destroyed the myth of Russia is something that we couldn't have done without a lot of fighting over many years. He managed to destroy completely every fucking myth about Russia. The strongest army? Nope. The most modern air force? Nope. A navy that can dominate the seas, not even close. Military strategists, not one in the realm. Even little rocket man in North Korea is already tired of him. And he's not going to get any more North Korean troops. This was it. This was it. I rejoice at what's going on, and we have a lot to thank Ukraine for. Speaking of which, I see that you're still frozen. I'm kind of waiting for your internet to return. But yeah, there we go. I knew it. Darn it. Believe it or not, folks, Thomas is still on the screen, but he isn't. So let me see if I can. No, his image is totally gone. But here you are. Did you notice that Trump goes ostensibly to the opening of the newly refurbished Notre Dame Cathedral? I said ostensibly because it looked more like a feudal door, like a feudal lord doing a visitation. Everybody came to kiss his ring. It was rather dramatic at one point. And Macron springs an impromptu meeting with Zelensky. Do you believe for a half a fucking second that Trump didn't know beforehand?
No, I mean, Trump knows everything, and if he doesn't know it for sure, he can intuit it easily.
Yeah, but nobody forces a meeting on somebody like Trump. If he was there and he stood for the pictures and shook hands, it's because he knew he was going to a meeting with Zelensky. You know how else I know he knew? Where was his trademark red tie?
Oh yeah, that's true. He goes.
Usually he wears red, white, and blue. This time it was gold and blue. Do you think that's a coincidence? Or he picked it on purpose?
I've seen a lot of stories about the symbolism of his ties.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking you. Do you think he goes to a meeting with Zelensky in Paris with Macron, who is even committed the use of French soldiers? God forbid, I hope for the sake of the Ukrainians that never becomes a necessity. A staunch supporter, the most vocal supporter of Ukraine in NATO. And Zelensky, and Trump shows up essentially wearing the Ukrainian flag. And this is soon after Sucker Carlson tries to propagandize from Moscow, and Sebastian Gorka announces that, if the Russians don't relent, we're going to inundate Ukraine with weapons they'd never imagined existed. This is going to be interesting.
Well, as of now, the Russian beginning position is a complete controlling of Ukraine. Ukraine has to demilitarize and basically get rid of its armed forces. Zelensky has to go. Ukraine can never enter NATO. Ukraine has to give up territory to form a buffer zone. The Russians keep everything they've taken, and Russia guarantees Ukraine's national sovereignty.
Yeah. By the way, The sons of bitches have the goal to promise that they will guarantee Ukraine's territorial integrity on the day of the 30th anniversary of the Budapest Memorandum, where they promised the same fucking thing
Mhm.
and turned around and invaded Ukraine. Who can take him seriously? The guy's a fucking clown.
Well, also, I read a great. I didn't see Tucker interviewing. You just said his name. I already forgot it.
Lavrov.
Lavrov.
Lavrov, the one who was being filleted by Hillary Clinton in
Right. He
2009
said,
with the reset button.
um, I saw a great review of the interview, and they said the Russians are behaving as if the United States has no agency whatsoever. It's just,
Right.
Russia is going to do this, Russia is going to do that, and Tucker is going to interview these mouthpieces of a third world country, and Tucker's pretending like Russia. It's not just the Ukrainians that are handing the Russians, one black eye after another. It's everybody in Europe. Abkhazia, they basically toss the Russians out, and the Russians have literally nothing. They can't do anything. They don't have enough troops to send. So they're boycotting the tangerines. Apparently, what happened in Romania?
They are rounding up foreigners in Moscow to send to the meat grinder.
Rounding up who?
Foreigners.
Oh, okay.
They're rounding up foreigners in Moscow to induct them into the army. That's how desperate they are.
Well, they hired Chinese gamers, mercenaries, who were point of view shooting gamers. And the Chinese arrived and they discovered that real war has nothing to do with point of view shooting games. These idiots thought that they were going to be going up against Ukrainians that were going to be jumping out from behind buildings and they would go rat-a-tat-tat. The mind boggles.
Let me see if the sound works here. And I'll show you a little bit of this grotesque ball licking and brown nosing that sucker went to do in Moscow. Isn't that lovely?
How many have died so far, do you think, on both sides?
It is not disclosed by Ukrainians. Zelensky was saying that it is much less than 80,000 persons on Ukrainian side. But there is one very reliable figure in Palestine. During 1 year after the Israelis started the operation in response to this terrorist attack, which we condemned, and this operation, of course.
By the way, did you notice the pivot?
Yeah, of course.
This is whataboutism as properly received in Soviet training back in the day.
Well, also Tucker's no big fan of Israel, so he'll love this.
Oh God, no, he'll love this, but there is no pushback, as you will see. But how many people have died in Ukraine? Well, as you know, 45,000 Palestinians have died in Gaza. Say fucking what?
Was acquired the proportion of collective punishment, which is against international humanitarian law as well. So during 1 year after the operation started in Palestine, the number of civilians, Palestinian civilians, killed is estimated 45,000. This is almost twice as many as the number of civilians on both sides of Ukrainian conflict who died during 10 years after the coup. 1 year and 10 years. So it is a tragedy in Ukraine. It's disaster in Palestine, but we never ever had as our goal killing people, and Ukrainian regime did.
How many have died so far, do you think, on both sides?
It is not disclosed by Ukrainians. Zelensky was
Okay. How about that for the Zelensky, for the Sucker Townsend and Lavrov interview? Can you imagine an hour of this shit?
No, because, okay, for one thing, 45,000 Palestinian civilians have not been killed.
Nope.
It's just for people who don't know, I studied the figure in 2014 during Operation Cast Lead, and the Palestinians said about 2,100 Palestinian civilians were killed. So I took the 3 available master lists and I compared them, and my own figure was less than 100 civilians were killed. And all the rest were combatants, because 75% of them were military-age males, and given that the terrorist groups in Gaza proudly admit to using children, you can't. The only children you can omit from the terrorist combatant list are infants. But any child who can walk is basically used as a courier, and in some cases an actual trigger pulling combatant. So
there are 9-year-olds with Kalashnikovs in there.
yeah, so the number that the Palestinians are giving corresponds almost 1-to-1 to the number of Hamas members and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the front for the what is it, the front for the liberation of Palestine.
Did they ever correct when they claimed 500 civilians died in the hospital?
No, of course not. And see,
and then it turns out the hospital wasn't hit by the Israelis, but the hospital parking lot was hit by Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and there weren't 500 dead, there were 12 wounded.
Well, that's the thing, that number 500 is an enormous number of civilians to be killed in a single strike. So that number goes in.
If you drop a bomb on Times Square, it's very difficult to get 500 dead.
Right. It's that number goes into the kitty of 45,000, and there's no questioning. Nobody questions. Everybody who criticizes Israel for killing civilians, they don't question that number, even though it's been absolutely proven that number is fictitious.
Even though Hamas admitted that the number was highly inflated and probably closer to 22.
Yeah.
And that was Hamas. But that's not even the point. The point was how many civilians died in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy speaks of 20,000 on each side in the 10 years of the war. Because, like I said, the war did not start in 22, it started in 14. And that's a lie. Number one, because there aren't Russian citizens in Ukraine, asshole.
And the Ukrainians aren't killing Russian civilians with their drone strikes.
Bingo. The Ukrainians have been targeting fuel depots, weapons depots, factories, shipyards. They have not targeted cities like the Russians.
And if you've noticed, they target the factory. They target the factories at night when they're closed down.
Yes. So are there casualties? Probably a few. And I mean a few, literally. Not as few as when Israel hit the Oshirak. It's Osirak, but in France they called it Oshirak because it was Jacques Chirac who pushed for its construction. The Osirak nuclear facility that Saddam had near Baghdad, and the Israelis hit it on a Sunday afternoon to minimize casualties. And indeed, there were no human casualties. Only 2 French technicians died in there. The same thing we can say about some of the strikes on military targets carried out by Ukrainians. The massive civilian casualties, which is close to, in the past 2 years alone, to 40,000, are the ones inflicted on Ukraine. And that doesn't count a second type of casualty. Russia has had a policy of kidnapping Ukrainian kids and taking them to Russia and giving them in adoption to Russian families and training them as militias.
Mm-hmm.
And when they turn 18, they send them back. That is, by the way, the essence of the case in the International Court against Russia. And the Ukrainians have presented documents up the wazoo, and we have at this point, from many sources, pictures of the kids in training, pictures of the kids in school. They have created a special school for kids kidnapped in Ukraine. Those are victims too. And now we're talking about several 100,000 in total. Who are they trying to fool?
Well, what I want to know, why is it so important for Tucker Carlson to talk up bozos like the Russians? The Russians are bozos.
Because that's where the money is, because he gets paid to do this. He's a whore.
Well, he can't be being paid that much money to go to Russia to interview Lavrov.
He is. He is a paid propagandist for the Russians. At this point, there is no doubt. What he is doing is not happenstance. What he's doing.
No, I think he has a personal stake in this, and I just want to know, why is it so important to talk up people like the Russians who everything they touch turns to crap? Like what is there to love about the Russian political and military leadership? I don't get it.
I get it only in the sense that he is a whore. Faisal says, victim of Israeli, Palestinian, Egyptian, Jordanian, Syrian, Lebanese conflict for 7 decades is nothing to compare to the number of victims that Assad, Iran, Russia have killed and displaced. Yes.
Oh, it's in the millions.
Assad, Russia, and Iran have killed 600,000 people and displaced 7 million.
Oh, I would put the number of dead in the millions, just because. Yeah, it's quite amazing that these are governments that do nothing but cause trouble and inflict misery, and everybody should be applauding the fact that Assad is gone.
I'm giddy.
Yeah.
And something else. A lot of people say, "What's in it for us? Why should we care?" And I always fall back on the same question. The disruption of trade, the disruption of markets, the disruption of movement affects our economy, affects our quality of life, and that of our partners. So yes, we do have a beef. We do have let's say, an interest in this. Like we have an interest in Bab el-Mandeb, which the Biden administration decided to pay no attention to, with dreadful results. And anybody who thinks it's nothing, take a look at your fucking electrical bill this month and then tell me that it had nothing to do with it. So it's discouraging how many people refuse to see that we are all interconnected in this world.
Well, I mean,
that these governments doing nothing but evil are doing it to us.
well, also Assad he was a state sponsor of terrorism, and
Yes.
the number one target for terrorism in the world are Americans. I mean, what do you mean that we have nothing? Has nothing to do with us? It has everything to do with us. Assad has been a state sponsor of terrorism ever since he was in power.
Yes. And you know, I published partial data in Gander, but when you look at it, we've lost 10 times more people to terrorism since 1980. And I'm referring to this particular form of terrorism. I'm not counting the domestic one in the 70s. 10 times more casualties than we had in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
10 times more. And apparently it doesn't matter. Apparently it doesn't matter. We still have American hostages. October 7th wasn't just an attack on Israel. Americans died. Americans were taken hostage. Americans have been wounded and killed in attacks from that little American base in southern Syria to places around the world. Of course we have a beef. I'm getting a question, Thomas, in the chat. Will Trump clean the United Nations? What do you think? What do you think he is? God? God himself, coming down from heaven in a chariot of fire, cannot clean that swamp.
No, I mean, the United Nations acts entirely in bad faith. So as long as it exists, it is a bad faith actor, and it can't be cleaned up, because for it to be cleaned up, it would not be the United Nations. The United Nations was never a good faith actor. It was always a bad faith actor.
And people don't get it. Leave the U.S. Leave the UN. Stay in the UN, folks. The UN has zero authority. The only authority the UN has is the one you give them when you overprice their goods. Who gives a flying petunia what a savage, or as Thomas likes to say, a leaf-chewing savage from a shithole has to say? I don't. When they say it in the UN, all of a sudden, oh my God, the UN said this, the UN said that. Who gives a crap? Why does it bother you? You know what the UN is? A very comfy way of having representatives from every government in New York, so that if you need to do something, instead of taking a plane to Africa or to Asia, you send somebody on Amtrak to New York City to meet in relative secrecy with the diplomats from the shithole in question, where you say, if you do this, I'll cut off your balls and feed them to your dogs. And they say, yes, Buana, and move on. And you saved a shit ton of money not having to send an expeditionary force to the shithole to achieve the same end. That's the only purpose of the UN. Now, in exchange for that, Every now and then they get together and they issue a proclamation, a declaration that Jews have big noses and Americans are evil. So fucking what? Why are people so obsessed? They speak of the UN as if it were some kind of supranational government. This is like John Bircher's gone wild.
No, the United Nations, their poster boy was that Venezuelan dictator. What the hell was his name? Maduro's Maduro's predecessor.
Chavez.
Chavez. Remember, Chavez came in and he said, "I smell sulfur."
Yeah.
You know, after Bush had spoken, and everyone went, "Ah, oh." It's the UN are. I heard a stand-up comedian talking about this years ago, and he said, "What's the UN? It's a bunch of third world cretins who are only happy to have a roof over their head and be in a building with running water."
Yes.
And exactly right.
And while they're at the General Assembly, they're not conspiring to overturn their own governments, because most of the people who are sent to the UN as representatives, legates, are given the opportunity of a golden exile, and they get rid of their shit by sending them to either the UN or some of the UN organizations, like that communist bastard in the World Health Organization that represented a risk to the rulers of Ethiopia. So they gave him a big salary in Geneva and good fucking riddance. That's all the UN is. And whatever they say is shit. And if you are outraged, you're a moron. Because you are overvaluing their shit. It's like the people, the UN are going to intervene. They're going to close the roads in Texas. Go fuck yourselves. And it also allows the Irish to think they're important. Because they have 10 guys helping Hezbollah in Lebanon. How would the Syrian news affect the Golan Heights? Not at all. People, darlings, Israel annexed the Golan Heights in the 80s. There is a town named after Donald Trump in the Golan Heights. Nobody in the Golan Heights wants to leave Israel. The Golan Heights are part of Israel. They're not occupied territory. They are Israel. What will happen? Nothing. And that's the end of it. And by the way, the U.S. recognized, during the Trump government, the U.S. recognized the Golan as integral part of Israel, so fuck it. And the Druze there are very happy to be Israelis.
Well, this is really interesting. Twitter hasn't, nothing has been posted of value since we've been on the air.
No. Of course not.
It's funny. There's all these nutcases, bots from Russia, Iran, whatever, just posting all this weird ass shit. Apparently, the Hindus, J.D. Vance is married to a Hindu. Kamala Harris is a Hindu. It's the Hindus that are helping Israel.
Yeah, they're Indians, but they're not Hindu necessarily.
Well, I'm just telling you what they're saying on Twitter. But the person was writing Hindu Vatna or something like that, Hinduthna or something. But the Hindus are helping Israel create greater Israel. Israel is going to annex most of Syria to create greater Israel.
Yeah. And if pushed just a little bit, they'll get the Punjab too.
Well, also that's what Israel is really looking forward to. An extra 30 million angry Muslims in their territory.
Yeah, with voting rights in the Knesset.
Yep.
They did say annex, right?
Yeah, they said annex, yeah.
Fuck no. Yeah, like you say, the only thing Israel needs is 30 million angry Muslims voting in Israeli elections. That will do it.
No, people are dumb. They are very, very dumb.
Israel does not want to send their children as soldiers in an occupation army. They don't want to expand. Well, they just want to be left the crap alone. They want to.
Well, okay, if Assad himself could not occupy Syria, if Assad himself could not occupy Syria, you think the Israelis can?
Shit. And the question is, would the Israelis want to?
No.
I mean, come on, folks. You know, it's almost depressing that these things keep doing the rounds and doing the rounds. It's almost as depressing as the Q-tards. Because it only proves that people don't stop.
Yeah, you told me they're back.
Hmm?
You told me that they're back.
Whoa, God, no, I see messages with all Q drops and all that shit. It's like, oh, God, these people didn't get a life. It's that they're still with this crap, that they're still morons that keep on keeping on. It's beyond me. It's beyond me. By the way, Thomas, we're getting into our third hour, so I'm going to take 5 minutes away to remind people that all of this shit, it's free to watch, but not free to produce, for crying out loud. Thomas is kind enough that he hasn't even asked me for a dime for internet and all that jazz, which he uses. But I have a shitload of expenses related with this. So please support us. And you can do that in several ways. One, by coming to Odyssey, subscribe, click to get notifications, and then you can either click on support and send us a cup of coffee, or click on the $ and send us a cup of coffee on the chat, or click join and join the channel as a member, and you're going to get some stuff for members only, and you're going to help us a lot. If none of this is to your satisfaction, then, of course, you can send a contribution to quadverum.com/support us, which is used for both the channel and the forum, Quadverum Forum. And if you're not a member, you should be. Just getting into Quadverum Forum is free. You support us if you feel like it. If not, you don't have to. And we will keep going for as long as we can afford to. That said, we're doing this now in Quadverum TV, our channel in Odyssey, YouTube, until they kick us out, because I'm sick and tired of playing games, and 2 timelines in Twitter, my own. Incidentally, that's another way of supporting us, which is getting a subscription on my timeline at The Brother Lie. You do that, and you're going to start seeing a lot of extra material from old threads to perhaps one day, if we get inspired, a new thread and articles that we will not post anywhere else. And Thomas's timeline, the one that some morons out there claim that has been hijacked by me.
Hijacked.
The Svengali that controls Thomas, because you see, he's so unintelligent and feeble-minded that an idiot like me can control him. Right, Thomas?
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot controlled by an idiot.
Yes, isn't that wonderful? That sounded
Well,
almost.
I mean, but see, the world is totally different now than it was all those years ago. It's like, you know, the top brand of republicanism has taken over. Syria just fell. Israel is whipping the tar out of all her enemies. I don't know. I don't get why people are still stuck in the past. Like we don't need QAnon anymore. QAnon was a creature of its day, and we don't need it anymore. It's, you know, you're free to move on from it. There's no giant mega force. I read that the Democrats have tried to whip up Hollywood to create the resistance version 2.0, and they're getting no takers.
No.
One of the most political losers is this comedian, so-called, named Sarah Silverman. And Sarah Silverman just announced that she was going to stop talking about politics because nobody wanted to hear from Hollywood right now. And, Sarah Silverman is you know, like a classic far left, you know, like coarse, nasty, belligerent. But she's saying that she wants no part of it because it's damaging her career.
Talking about her vagina. Hello? Uh-oh. You're frozen again. Hello? Sarah Silverman rose to fame talking about her vagina. So that's what we need, you know, a talking vagina giving us political advice.
You know what it sounds like I'm listening to? All I heard was the word vagina.
Oh, there you go. Don't worry, he'll be back momentarily. It's there we are. Hello there. Hello? You just came back, but you don't have sound, or? Oh, well. It's gonna get fixed eventually. Some of the preposterous U.S. Air Force bombings in Saudi are sponsored and then sheltered by Assad terror regime. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Saudi government demanded to hand over him, but Assad regime said they committed suicide by swallowing a piece of soap. Yeah, that sounds fitting.
I didn't catch any of that.
No,
suicide.
He's talking about Khobar. No, I was saying about Silverman. You know, who wants to hear political commentary from a woman famous for talking about her vagina? Uh-oh.
Yeah, and for years and years now, it's like, okay, we get it. I don't know. Everything has changed. You know, the world has completely changed over the past. Let's see, Trump first took office in 2017. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, that's 7 years. So the world has completely changed in the past 7 years. And
Yep.
you know, we as voters and consumers of social media, we should change too. You know, we shouldn't be stuck in the past.
No, and you know what the what's frustrating to me is that the few things that haven't changed, that are in the background all the time, they gather no attention. People are chasing colored
Mm-hmm.
glasses and mirrors, and missing the point entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and they will go after somebody who says, "We need peace. We don't." That imbecile Ron Paul. We need to eliminate all kind of foreign aid. Well, it sounds good, and I would agree with 80% of it. But not all foreign aid has been created equal, and there are
No.
instances where we get a huge return for our foreign aid, and not all foreign aid is
Yeah,
giving
like
money. Not all foreign aid are suitcases of bills like these people insinuate. So, but those slogans, those short bumper stickers, are the only thing that enters the brains of most of the simians that constitute the majority of the population.
no, the money we barely give Israel any foreign aid anymore because they were sick and tired of basically depending. Foreign aid is also it's a string. It's a sort of Damocles
Yeah.
you hang somebody's head. And the Israelis got tired of us telling them what to do. So, you know, we used to give the Israelis a hell of a lot more foreign aid than we do now. And what foreign aid we gave the Israelis, we got massive return on in terms of technology. And I heard people say, well, we should just come up with technology like that on our own. And it's like,
Why?
we're not Israelis. We can't do it.
Yeah, and even
The
if we could,
Israelis have like the highest number. The Israelis have the highest number of patents per capita in the world. So, you know, we can't
but
come up with that tech.
Thomas, even if we could, why would we? It's already done. I'll give you another
Because there
example.
are people. Exactly. It's
Oh, there you are. Now I can hear you, or not. Um, a different type of foreign aid. We didn't give any foreign
no.
aid.
This is. I'm positive that there's all sorts of shenanigans being played by the Iranians, Russians, Chinese,
Yeah.
and you know everybody
I'll,
else
I'll,
who's got hackers and
yes,
you know.
yes. I mean, who benefits from the U.S. canceling all foreign aid to, say, South America? China. They get to buy influence on basement bargains. So now we have the largest port in Peru operated by China, the largest port in Brazil operated by China. And we're losing influence, and we're losing economic activity to China. And it would be very, very, very easy to fart in their general directions and blowing them out of South America. You know, I have no love lost for the region, but that's a fact of life. Do you want the Chinese
For the
controlling
who?
all the Chinese controlling all the of Peruvian exports to the U.S.?
No.
I don't think so. But since we started looking in a different direction, the Chinese come in, give a few dollars here or there as instructed by the local leaders, and they get the license to operate the port. And according to that idiot Ron Paul, we shouldn't be doing that. I'm trying to see if you come back. Not quite so easy. Oh boy. I hate it when shit goes ape shit in Orange County. So while we wait for Thomas again, not all foreign aid is the same. Some types of foreign aid are necessary to extend influence and increase trade. And when done with measure, it works. Something that these idiots don't seem to understand. Are you back, Thomas?
I'm back.
Finally. So I don't know if you heard what I just said, but if not, probably it's not that important. But it's stupid. But it's done in bumper stickers that a lot of people think makes sense. Because it's boiled down to the minimum intellectual expression to fit their capabilities. What was Hunter doing in 2014 that he needs a pardon for? Well, he was dealing with the Russians in Ukraine. What do you think?
I wonder if
somebody's not with Zelensky.
I wonder if my neighbors are like, okay. I wonder if my neighbors are piggybacking on my Wi-Fi or something. This is like the worst connection we've ever had.
Yeah. It could be. The only thing I could tell you is change all the passwords after we're done so that they cannot piggyback on you anymore. That's the only advice I have for you in there.
It's really weird. It's I would find it hard to believe that after all this time somebody's still trying to mess with us, but you never know.
You never know.
Long
you don't even know if they know it's you. They may think it's the other neighbor. The question in the chat was, what was Hunter Biden doing in 2014? He was being his father's bagman with the Russians in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Not Zelensky, not Ukrainians. He was dealing with the Russian mob in Ukraine while Ukraine had a pro-Russian government, to the point that that president is now in exile in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they needed to go back to January 1st, 14. Ex-grifters, says Van Dien, good morning, Vietnam. Trying to mix up Burisma and current Ukraine. Of course they are. Sometimes you have to wonder, do they do it because they're that ignorant, or do they do it because it's bad milk? Probably a combination of both. Scott is suggesting you open the router to see who's connected.
Oh, okay. I'll try that.
And that might work, because if you have an Xfinity router, you share it with the neighborhood. Unless you put some strong passwords, which I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you kind of keep it free. So, ex-grifters. I by the way, why would I care what ex-grifters say? Does Does anybody think that has any influence where it matters? Ex-grifters only have influence on the weak-minded. The people who have no inclination or no ability or no capacity for intellection to look for answers or to verify facts. And they will swallow hook, line, and sinker all the bullshit printed by lettuce peddlers and all kinds of overnight experts on everything who know nothing about anything. So I would be. I'm growing more cynical by the hour, Thomas, with this type of thing. Have you noticed how everybody says all media is dead, only X is where the truth is? Did you see that? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There we are. Now you're moving. At least you have a
I'm moving.
At least you have a mustache.
I'm moving to Las Vegas. I still barely have a mustache, but I trimmed it. This is all I have. I have a Kentucky. What was his name? Colonel Sanders look.
D'Artagnan, Victor.
Next week, I'm going to be wearing a bandana, and I'm going to wear that when the beard grows back. Yeah. Nobody gets to see me.
No. You are D'Artagnan, Victor.
Yeah, my settings, everything looks fine. Whatever. I mean, I love technology. Think about what technology, how far it's advanced in our lifespan. You're in my lifespan. Like, I remember I was looking for something, and I had to drive to downtown LA and go to the public library.
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah. And now I don't have to do that. And some people complain about it, but okay, all those books there, they were all like single copies, and people were coming in and flipping through them with their grubby fingers. And at some point that single copy would fall apart. And, you know, now the library gets to keep their copies pristine, except every now and then someone will want to come in and take a look at it. And then you put on your white gloves and flip through it. But, you know,
oh God, I spent hours going through old newspapers in that library.
Yeah,
and they had much of that in paper copies. They had much of that in microfilm.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go, you know, to the drawers, find first to the index, then to the drawer, find the thing, go to the reader, put it on. It was quite a chore. In order to find 3 or 4 articles that I was looking for, sometimes I'd spend the entire day or 2 days even. And now, of course, all of that is digitized. And all of that is on the internet. And I don't have to go to the fucking library anymore.
Yeah, newspapers. I subscribe to newspapers.com, and I can find anything I'm looking for on newspapers.com.
Yeah. Deb says, Elon says you are the media now. I told you he was trolling you. He's too intelligent to believe that shit. No, you are not the media now. I am not the media now. A gazillion morons writing shit in Twitter are not more the media than a gazillion morons writing definitions in Wikinarnia. If X is the media, Wikipedia is the encyclopedia. I don't believe either statement. Jeez. Because we all know, right, Thomas, that if you want the perfect definition for everything, you have to find it in Wikipedia.
I was shocked at how utterly incorrect Wikipedia is that I use Google as my search engine because, as messed up as it
Why
is,
not?
it's better than the others. And when I look up something up, they give me what they call an AI
Yes.
search result. The AI search result is always just Wikipedia.
Yep.
And if you put in German uprisings 1922, here's good old AI telling you about German uprisings in 1923, not 1922. So everybody's terrified of AI, but AI is the stupidest thing that ever invented because all it knows is what you have put into it.
Of
So
course. No,
and-
and it's worse than that. It's left-wing propaganda. Francisco Franco was the dictator of Spain, and Fidel Castro was the
yeah,
president of Cuba. Hello, I have no problem calling Franco a dictator, but if you're going to do that, shouldn't Fidel be a dictator of Cuba?
mhm.
Just saying. It's full of subtleties and what we would call subliminal propaganda, which is the worst kind because it's the one most people are not alert to. And you find it in the vocabulary and the choice of vocabulary. Faisal, Saul, I share with you a video next for Christians celebrating Assad fall down next to their church and Christmas tree in Damascus. If you can play the video, it would be awesome. Actually, yes, you did, my friend. Let me see if I can find it. I'm sure that Thomas will not mind. I just have to go over here. Oh, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Greco-Levantines. Look at this. This is how the Christians in Syria are worried about their future with the rebels, Thomas. Okay. And let me know, please, if the sound is working. This.
Yeah, I don't hear any sound. I didn't hear any sound.
Ah, well, did you at least see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's better because I had to use. Let me see if I can show you again with sound. Um, that might. I need to change this video to a different browser. This is part of the problem that I've been having today.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, what the heck? Hopefully, this will do it. And as they start celebrating, Thomas, pay attention to the bells.
Mhm.
Hopefully, this will work. Cross your fingers now. Can you hear it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I just checked Breitbart, and they're terrified about the fate of the Christians, as
yeah.
if apparently Breitbart is too dumb to know that it was Druze Muslims, not jihadis, who took over Damascus. So I don't know.
No, they're either too stupid or I'm convinced Breitbart is infused with the Bannon bullshit. Bannon is an asshole who is working in cahoots with the Vatican out of the Dignitatis Humana Foundation in a castle donated by the Vatican for this purpose, where he advances the social doctrine. So I don't believe anything that comes from that corner because the asshole is a soldier of Loyola. He is as an American as they come. Now they're going to say, oh, he's a conservative. No, he's not a conservative. He is a Christian mullah. He is a jihadist for the Uber. They used to be called Ultramontano. The Uber conservative church. Those people, if they could, would reinstate the Inquisition. So does it surprise me that they lie about Libya? No, they lie about everything.
Was it you who told me? Was it you who told me about Nick Fuentes and Destiny?
No, I missed that one.
It must have been my brother. A sex tape has emerged online that shows the leftist podcaster Destiny performing a sexual act on Nick Fuentes.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. Now,
That Destiny has no taste.
well, this is one of these situations where all sides are taking shots at them. Number one, Nick Fuentes is a self-confessed Nazi, and Nick
Yep.
Fuentes, like every alleged conservative who speaks out obsessively about homosexuality, is himself a closeted homosexual.
Otherwise, it wouldn't bother you. What?
Exactly. But Destiny is performing a sexual act on a man who admits, who is self-identifies as a Nazi. So it's one of these moments in social media history where it's just like, why do either of these guys have any kind of internet presence? Like, why does anybody call them up to ask for their opinions? Why does these are people with no moral values deep down inside. They're just kind of doing what they do on social media to get fame and fortune, and behind the scenes they're performing sexual acts on each other, even though you would think these two individuals would be so far apart ideologically that they would not even be able to share a cup of coffee, but in fact they're sharing a bed.
Because everything is posturing for these assholes.
Yeah, it's true.
Everything is posturing.
Everything.
And by the way, I draw the line on having sexual acts with you for raising money for Quadverum.
Well,
I'm not willing to do just about it.
there isn't a single person on the planet who would pay money to watch that.
I don't know. There are sufficiently depraved individuals for anything. People out there, we're kidding here, okay?
See, Nick Fuentes, I listened to the tape. There's a YouTube channel. It's called the Clown of Chaos, and this guy is a persona, and he purports to thrive on equal opportunity chaos, and he made these statements about Nick Fuentes that people in his audience didn't believe. So he found the actual tape, and Nick Fuentes at one point was declaring a Christian jihad against Jews. He was saying that we have to go to war against Jews. We have to exterminate them. And I knew the name Nick Fuentes. I'd never seen him. Nick Fuentes has the queeniest sounding voice I've ever heard in my life.
Yes.
And I was not in the slightest surprised to find out that he's performing having a sexual act performed on him by another man, much less a leftist man, an uber leftist man. And it's just so tawdry. The word that just comes to mind. It's tawdry. The Clown of Chaos was saying, stay off of Twitter today. This was today. He said that it's a bad time to have eyes. And I didn't look up the video. I didn't watch it. I have no interest in seeing what was described. But I was just marveling at hearing Nick Fuentes extol family values.
You mean Fuentes is like a South American Queen Hitler wannabe?
Pretty much. The
screaming Queen Nazi is what I'm going to call him now.
Well, it's amazing. For one thing, he's a self-described white supremacist whose name is Fuentes.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
Well, if it was a Fuentes from Cantabria, he would be whiter than most people in America. But that's not the point. He's probably from Mexico or something.
Well, he's very pale. I'd heard all about this guy. He's quoted all the time, and I just thought it was so very fitting that a guy who declared a Christian jihad against the Jews, to a roar of approval from whatever crowd he was jabbering to, hasn't he appeared and spoken at like CPAC?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know that I miss some people in CPAC. Maybe one day I'll go back, but that's one of the reasons I stopped going.
Yeah.
I don't waste my time to go and listen to the likes of him. I don't think he has anything of value to add to any conversation.
Well, anybody who claims that we need to rise up as Christians to exterminate the Jews is somebody who we don't want on our side.
No, I don't want to be caught in the same room with the son of a bitch. And now, after what you tell me, I don't want to be caught in the same city.
Yeah.
Somebody says here, didn't Kanye take Fuentes to Mar-a-Lago? Yes, the son of a bitch did. I understand that neither has been to Mar-a-Lago since.
Well,
or ever will be.
Nobody did I mean, okay, someone like Trump, how many people do you suppose Trump has met in his lifetime? It's got to be in the millions. So at some point, the vetting process is going to have a little glitch.
And I believe there was no time for vetting because Kanye went there as a friend of Trump. He had been with Trump for quite some time. And apparently he brought a friend along. And nobody knew. And by the way, if you are close enough to somebody like Trump, if you have an invitation and you bring a friend along, they're going to let you in. Okay? Of course, I don't think anybody knew what kind of an asshole Kanye West was bringing in.
No, and
I don't think Trump knew of Nick Fuentes, because I don't think he wastes his time reading Q-tards and every lunatic in Twitter.
no.
But how did he react? None of them ever stepped into one of his properties again.
Well, see, Kanye had one of his regular sort of breakdowns that he wasn't attacking anyone. He was just off his rocker. And at one point, he showed up at Trump Tower, and Trump and Kanye sort of came down and spoke to the press. Kanye didn't speak. Trump spoke. And he said, you have to understand, I've known Kanye for decades, and we're friends. And when he needs to talk, I make time for him. And, you know, he sort of explained that. And then they went back upstairs. But up to that point, Kanye had never said Hitler was great. You know, he had great ideas about extermination, et cetera, et cetera. After Kanye crossed that Rubicon, Trump couldn't invite him, and Trump was into politics by then. You know, Trump couldn't invite him to Mar-a-Lago anymore.
No, because you don't know who the fuck he's going to show up with.
And you just don't want to be associated with a guy who you know, was running around in an SS uniform saying Hitler had the right idea.
Yeah.
So
No. And what Kanye did from a friend standpoint is unforgivable.
yeah.
Kelly says, opposite side of the street, walk across to the same side. Opposite side of the street. I don't just cross the street. I leave town. I will not be ever. I was invited to a number of functions over the past 4 years. Some were very lucrative propositions, and I could have used the offer. As you know, Thomas, I've been taking care of my father and now my mother, and it puts us straight. I could have used the money, let's put it that way. But fuck it, when I saw who was going to be on stage, it's like there is no way in hell that anybody would ever be able to say that I shared a stage with these people. They're lunatics. I don't want to be associated with them.
Well, as somebody who got branded as a lunatic, you know, a mentally ill guy in 2014, and that branding has stayed with me forever, for 10 years now, 11 years. You're right to not appear at a venue with the likes of Nick Fuentes, because
can you imagine?
You will get branded and it'll stick, and then you'll find yourself disinvited or not invited to places more and more.
I did a presentation in Miami about 3 years ago, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, you know, he was watching you and he would like to do something with you." Who? Enrique Tarrio. Tell him to go fuck himself. Can you imagine? If I had known he was there, I would have had him thrown out. He would like to. Somebody contacted me, and I think I told you at the time, because they wanted me in InfoWars with Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm.
My answer was, "Oh, I'm sorry, but my schedule is full." "Oh, when will you have the time?" "Somewhere around 2048. I don't expect to be alive in 2048. Why would anybody do that?
I don't know. We're in an era where all sides are just sort of echoing what they heard other people say. I told you I watch a guy. I won't mention his name. He's been a very good. He was inspiring because he started out with nothing. He was a graphic designer who lost his job due to layoffs, and he became a political commentator, and now he's one of the biggies. And he was talking about whatever it was he was talking about, and then all of a sudden he said, it's like Volodymyr Zelensky. He comes to the Capitol building wearing his pajamas and his little boy shoes, and he says, give me money, and they give him money. And I thought, oh, how disappointing. I can't listen to you anymore. You're so dumb that you just repeated what you heard somebody else say.
Yep, no filter. No filter. So anyway, we've talked about Ukraine a little bit. I'm still fascinated by Trump's gold tie and blue suit to meet with Zelensky in Paris. I think he just telegraphed major support. I hope it's not just me trying to fulfill my fantasies, but I know he does that from time to time, and it certainly looked like a message. And like I said, combined with Sebastian Gorka's predictions.
And Gorka's not a fan of us supporting Ukraine.
He's not a fan of supporting anybody.
So people understand you can't let this war just keep going indefinitely. It has to stop, and the Russians have to lose.
And you cannot allow Russia to gain an inch of territory at Ukraine's expense. Period. End of story.
Yeah. And look, everybody needs to understand they need to face the reality. Even if Trump folded his arms and said, we're not going to give a penny more worth of weaponry or support to Ukraine, the Europeans would say, fine, we'll do it ourselves. And they would do it themselves. And we would lose a hell of a lot of influence over European, geopolitics, which, going back to what you were saying about trade, Europe is I think our greatest trading partner. So,
yes.
Western Europe at any rate. So,
yes. And do we want all of this shit to cause war and recession in Europe? No. And it's not for protection of the Europeans, it's for our own protection. While Thomas's internet has its latest burp and he comes back, Scott GFX is saying that what the hell was he saying? I just missed one here. Oh, Thomas's internet seems to have improved. Why stop now? Hey baby, you're getting 3 hours of this Blather for $36. What do you want from us? Right now there are 1,600,000 people watching. And we barely have for one coffee for Thomas in Orange County. So at 3, we're gone. God, gimme. They all sound like Democrats. Thomas, are you back? Am I putting you to shame yet? There you are. You moved.
I moved, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to move to Nevada one of these days. What?
Yeah. Am I putting you to shame? Hello? Oh, crap. Oh, there you are.
I think it's time to call it quits.
I think it
Yep.
is. Somebody was saying, why quit now that the internet is working? I said, we've been here for 3 hours for $30. Uh, what else do you want from us? So 1,600 people just got a freaking bargain. Let them enjoy it. And well, I don't know um, if we have anything that we wanted to talk and we didn't. And your
No, I
internet
think we
is
covered what we wanted to cover.
okay. In that case, people, with 10 minutes to go for our usual time, I think the internet has had the best of us today. And what the heck? Just a reminder, we don't have advertising, we don't have sponsors, we do not interrupt your conversation except in YouTube. In YouTube, they have ads, but it amounts to maybe $1 per show. If you can, do help us out, and you can do so by coming to uh, uh, Odyssey. The link is in there in all of our venues, or dropping a buck at quadverum.com/support us. We'll be very appreciative. And if you become a member of this channel or a subscriber in Twitter, so much the better. So it's been a pleasure, really. And Thomas, do you have a last word?
Rake hell.
What?
Rakehell. Rake hell.
Oh, Raquel. Raquel, of course. Thank you so very much, sir. And, well, I'll talk to you later. Good night, folks, and thank you for coming here tonight.